What if Honda brought back a bike that was never about winning races, but somehow ended up winning riders' hearts anyway? And here's the twist. If this machine came back today, it might actually make more sense now than it ever did back in the 70s. Seriously, stay with me. Welcome back to Acer Rider, and today we're diving into a forgotten legend that deserves way more attention, the 2026 Honda MR175 Elsinore. Now, here's the thing. When people hear Elsinore, they immediately think of the CR motocross bikes, fast, aggressive, race-focused machines. But the MR175, that was a completely different story. This bike wasn't built for the track, it was built for real riding. Trails, forests, uneven paths, long days in the dirt. This was the bike you chose when you actually wanted to enjoy the ride, not just survive it. And I'll be honest, this is exactly the kind of bike I feel is missing today. Because if you look at the current market, everything is either too extreme or too heavy. You've got high-performance motocross bikes on one side and big, bulky adventure bikes on the other. But where is that middle ground? Where's the lightweight, simple, go-anywhere machine that doesn't try to overwhelm you? That's where the original MR175 lived, and that's why bringing back the 2026 Honda MR175 Elsinore could actually be one of the smartest moves Honda could make right now. Let's take a step back for a second. The original MR175 came out in the mid-1970s as a kind of hybrid. It borrowed ideas from Honda's motocross lineup, but softened everything just enough to make it usable in the real world. It had a 171cc two-stroke engine, a lightweight frame, and a setup that was designed for control rather than speed. And that's something I really want to emphasize: control. Because in real off-road riding, especially on trails, control matters way more than horsepower. You're dealing with tight corners, uneven terrain, unexpected obstacles. You don't need a bike that tries to rip your arms off. You need one that listens to you. And from everything riders have said over the years, that's exactly what the MR175 did. Now imagine that same philosophy but updated for 2026. Visually, I think Honda would absolutely nail this if they keep it simple. You'd have that classic Elsinore red, a slim tank and a long, flat seat that lets you move around easily. The high front fender, the narrow body, the tall stance, it all just screams off-road capability. But at the same time, everything would feel more refined, better materials, tighter panel gaps, cleaner lines. It wouldn't look like a retro bike trying too hard. It would look like a modern machine that respects its roots. And personally, I think that's the perfect approach. Because let's be real, some designs don't need to be reinvented. They just need to be evolved. Now, let's talk about the engine, because this is where things get really interesting and where opinions might get divided. The original MR175 was a two-stroke, and that's a big part of its personality. Lightweight, responsive, and simple. It wasn't the most powerful engine out there, but it delivered its power in a way that felt smooth and predictable. And I'll be honest, I wish we could fully bring that back, because there's something about two-strokes that just feels alive. The sound, the response, the way the power builds, it's not just mechanical, it's emotional. But realistically, in 2026, Honda would probably go with a four-stroke engine, somewhere around 175 cc's to 200 cc's. And yeah, from a practical point of view, that makes sense. Better fuel efficiency, lower emissions, easier maintenance, more reliability. But here's my personal take, and I think a lot of you will agree. Even if a four-stroke is the smarter choice, it needs to feel right. It needs to be tuned for smooth, usable power, not aggressive, not overwhelming. Because if Honda gets that wrong, they lose what made the MR175 special in the first place. Now, performance is where this bike could really shine. This isn't about speed, it's not about racing, it's about how the bike feels when you're actually riding it. Lightweight handling would be absolutely key. The original MR175 was easy to maneuver, easy to control, and forgiving when you made mistakes. That's something a modern version needs to keep. Because let's be honest, no one rides perfectly all the time, and a bike that helps you recover instead of punishing you, that's a bike you'll actually enjoy. And this is something I personally value a lot. I'd rather ride a bike that lets me relax and enjoy the experience than something that constantly demands my full attention just to stay in control. Now imagine combining that lightweight feel with modern suspension. We're talking long travel front forks, a refined rear monoshock, and a setup that can handle rough terrain without beating you up. You'd be able to ride longer, push further, and explore more. And that's really what this bike is about: exploration. Not just riding from point A to point B, but actually going out and discovering new places. Braking would also be a huge upgrade. The original bike didn't have the stopping power we expect today, but a 2026 version would definitely come with disc brakes, and possibly ABS depending on the market. That alone would make a massive difference in confidence, especially for newer riders. Now, when it comes to features, I really hope Honda keeps things minimal. Fuel injection? Yes. LED lighting? Sure. Small digital display? That's fine. But beyond that, keep it simple. Because the moment you start adding too much technology, you take away from the experience. And this is something I strongly believe. Simplicity is part of the fun. Now, let's talk about who this bike is actually for. First, beginners. This could easily be one of the best entry-level off-road bikes out there. It's not intimidating, it's easy to handle, and it helps you build real riding skills. Then you've got experienced riders, and this is where things get really interesting, because even if you've ridden bigger, more powerful bikes, there's something incredibly refreshing coming back to something simple. And I'll be honest, this is something I personally connect with a lot. Sometimes I don't want the fastest bike, I just want something I can ride without overthinking it, something that lets me enjoy the moment. And that's exactly what the MR175 represents. Then there are riders who want versatility, a bike they can take on trails, ride on rough roads, maybe even use occasionally for daily riding. This fits perfectly. Now here's the twist I mentioned at the beginning, and this is where things get really exciting. What if Honda isn't just bringing back the 2026 Honda MR175 Elsinore as a single model, but as the beginning of a whole new category? A lineup of lightweight, practical, rider-focused bikes that bring back simplicity. Because if you look at the market right now, there's a real gap. Not everyone wants extreme performance. Not everyone wants a heavy adventure bike. There's a growing number of riders who just want something fun. And Honda already has the blueprint. The MR175 proved decades ago that this formula works. If they bring it back the right way, this wouldn't just be a nostalgic revival. It could actually change how people look at modern motorcycles. So the real question is, would you ride a modern MR175 Elsinore? Would you choose something simple, lightweight, and fun over something bigger and more powerful? Because I'll be honest, this is exactly the kind of bike I'd want in my garage, no hesitation. If this got you even a little excited, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Acer Rider. We've got more legendary bikes, more deep dives, and more ideas coming your way. And before we wrap this up, quick disclaimer: the 2026 Honda MR175 Elsinore discussed here is not an officially confirmed model by Honda. This concept is based on historical inspiration, current market trends, and creative interpretation with AI-assisted insights, created purely for discussion and entertainment purposes. But sometimes the bikes that weren't the loudest end up being the ones we remember the most.